2. Who shot JFK? And the world's greatest conspiracy theory with more than 500,000 websites? At number 1, it's mind control. Have secret experiments been carried out on ordinary, unsuspecting people by government scientists who are trying to develop a terrifying new weapon? A weapon to control the human mind.
The CIA had a program in the 50s and 60s in which they, used drugs and hypnosis and other technologies in an effort to create the perfect agent in the field, someone who could be controlled, possibly to even commit assassinations robotically.
John Allman has been hearing voices in his head for years.
It's not actually happening at the moment. It's been terribly quiet the past few days. I don't honestly think the perpetrators of this really know quite how to deal with one of their victims getting on telly.
John believes this experiment proves that it is possible to transmit sound and words so that they are heard inside the target's head.
The device we've got here is a crude commercial device. We can be sure the military could construct one which was far more pinpoint accurate. So that you could have 2 people sitting in this church and one targeted and one either side of them not hearing the voices.
It might seem laughably unlikely if it weren't for the fact that mind control technology exists and has been used for years.
It's not a theory, it is fact. It went into overdrive after the Korean War, when POWs were returned who had been tortured by the Chinese. They seemed apparently normal and functioned normally, but then it became apparent that they had become Chinese agents, that they had been brainwashed and programmed.
The internet allows unhappy, frightened people living thousands of miles apart to find one another and share their mutual fear that they are being conspired against.
I believe I've been targeted with microwave weapons. Also, I've discovered that a lot of my clothing and possessions there's been toxins placed in them.
Tom McClelland lives in New York and has never met John Allman, but he too is convinced that his brain is being bombarded by government-controlled weapons.
And I couldn't tell you exactly the technology they're using on me. They might use a satellite, or they might have somebody in a building, across the street. I've been to the psychiatrists and doctors in the past, and but it's almost fruitless, because I think that it's just beyond their belief systems.
It may be beyond your belief systems too. After all, hearing voices in your head is a classic symptom of mental illness. But stop and think for a minute. We already live under the gaze of satellites and surveillance cameras monitoring our every movement 24 hours a day. What are they doing with all this information? There might be a rational alternative explanation for hearing voices in your head. At the heart of the world's greatest conspiracy theory lies a hardcore of fact.
We know there are official papers on various other experiments back in the Cold War conducted by the CIA when they used drugs and all kinds of stuff on people, looking for truth serums, things that would bend people's consciousness. They gave people LSD, they gave people all kinds of strange things. So the notion that the CIA would investigate ways of bending your brain wasn't startling.
As long ago as the 60s, a scientist named Delgado was able to stop a charging bull in its tracks using a radio-controlled implant in its brain.
Anybody can look this up anywhere. I'm not making this up. I found that you don't have to make anything up. Reality is so stunningly bizarre. The American government has experimented on its own people on a number of occasions.
If the mind control conspiracy theory doesn't make you paranoid, nothing will.
If there's nothing in all this, why did I get a series of anonymous telephone calls at around 4 in the morning, one of which said I should leave the country or be killed because I knew too much.
Are they schizophrenic? Are they mentally ill? Are they a little bit too impressionable? Have they seen too many episodes of The X-Files? All of the above. There is a history of, conspiracy, real conspiracy, involving the CIA and mind control.
That's how bad it's got. We've lost faith in government agencies to such an extent that we now think they're capable of anything, no matter how horrendous.
Let's face it, we know enough about governments and their secret servants to know that if they could do this, they would do this. If they could find a way of making us all believing what they say, damn right they're going to pursue it.
How do we stop the world of conspiracy from spiraling into madness?
I don't find anything impossible. Once you find things impossible, you're editing possibility. I look at information, and if it's compelling, I go with it. If it's not, I don't.
What I think was at one point a very interesting and skeptical way of thinking about the world, a sort of a subversive way of thinking about the world, has itself become accepted and has become trivialized to the point where it's no longer a challenge to the system, and it almost reinforces the official version by its own lack of credibility.
Many of us no longer read books or even a newspaper. We can't be bothered keeping up with current events or even watching the news. We don't vote because we don't trust our politicians. Where are we turning to for our information?
What it's like to be 20, sitting in your bedroom with your computer, reading all this stuff, I simply don't know. If you can't believe what you see on television, if you can't believe what you read in the newspapers, then the nature of reality is up for grabs. There's no authorities left, and there's nobody to trust. Can't believe what you see on television.
It's been suggested that the long-term objective of mind control experiments is to develop a system by which all citizens can be monitored and tracked by sophisticated satellite-based cybernetics, perhaps using the victim's own technology in their own living room. So we hope you enjoyed watching the world's greatest conspiracy theories. We've certainly enjoyed watching you.
And there's more conspiracy tomorrow night on 5.
Can you prove any of this?
Absolutely not. A good conspiracy is an unprovable one. If you can prove it, I mean, they must have screwed up somewhere along the line.